Hi, and welcome to Elevator English. My name is Mike, and you can use this video to practice your English listening skills and advance your professional English. Also, if you go to elevatorenglish.com, you'll find a super useful test which will test your understanding of this video and give you feedback on your English. Today, we're talking to Joana. Joana is a Portuguese freelance travel writer. She's written for some big publications like Lonely Planet, and she'll be talking to me about freelance writing, search engine optimization, and her feelings on Chat GPT. In this natural English conversation, you're going to hear lots of examples of useful phrases we use when giving an opinion or talking about the creative process. If you want more information about the phrases we're using in the video or how you can use them in your day-to-day English, then you can go over to the website, Elevator English. Next floor, knowledge. So, without any further ado, let's talk to Joana. Hi, Joana. How are you doing?
Good, and you?
I'm very well. I've been busy, actually. Busy writing.
Okay.
Much like yourself, I imagine.
Yes, always busy writing here.
Let's jump into it. So you're a travel writer. You've written for really big publications like Lonely Planet. How did you get into that? Where did it all start?
So it took a while to get here. I studied performing arts, but I couldn't really find anything in the area after I graduated. So I ended up taking several jobs, and one of them was a content manager for a company that worked in the tourism industry.
Right.
So my job was to write, about the best things to do in Lisbon, which is where the company was based, for a travel app. So things to do in Lisbon and other cities as well, because they worked with different companies in other parts of the world. And at the same time, I had my own travel blog where I was writing about my experience living in Lisbon and other like little day trips that I did around Portugal and also to the UK or Poland, like different countries. And a Portuguese travel agency found it and asked me if I could write for their website.
Wow. So you were kind of like headhunted.
Yeah, basically. I was in this website, which I don't think it exists anymore. It was called angel.co, which was where a lot of startups had their profiles. And I had a profile there as well. Like I don't really know why I had a profile there in the first place, but
Right. Well, it worked out, right?
so they messaged me through there. And then obviously I was still working full time. And I was like, oh yeah, sure, I can just do this on the side. But actually that when I started seeing that I could make money from that, I decided to quit my job, so my full-time job, and started writing for them. And in the meantime, I got a couple of other publications going as well. So that's how I started my freelance writing career, I would say. And that was 6 years ago, almost 6 years ago.
So when you're writing, is it like how are you writing for a specific audience? Of course, with tourism and travel, you've got so many different types of people and reasons people travel. So are you kind of finding like a niche or a kind of specific topic that you're interested in, or do you have an audience in mind or a reader in mind and you're kind of writing for them?
I think it depends on the client. Like I've written for like food tour companies. So then I'm writing for people that really enjoy food and wine. So I'm focusing on that. Sometimes I'm writing about luxury travel. And so I need to see what these kind of people enjoy. Most times actually there will be in the briefing, like some clients will send you a briefing of what they want and the audience will be there. So there will be like an age range or what type of interests they have. And sometimes they even have like what kind of voice you should use. So
Right.
like first person, third person, second person. So I can always work around that.
Right. Okay. So they kind of give you a framework to work to. That's
Yeah,
interesting because
some of them do, some of them don't. So
right. Sometimes it's just like you've got absolute creative freedom.
well, it's either creative freedom or you have to also do your research. Like you go and see what other articles they've written in the past. So you go online and see what they have and you kind of try to emulate that. That's basically how I
Right.
would do it.
So you're keeping the same tone as the rest of the publication.
Yeah, keeping the same tone, but also you should add your personality to it also. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's actually something I find really interesting because I'm also writing material. I'm making videos for
Yeah.
my website, elevatorenglish.com. And it's interesting to me because when I'm putting content up, I'm doing it in isolation and I'm not as professional as you are, I would imagine, but I'm getting feedback from like SEO, like the search engine optimization stuff. And I find it a little bit tedious because it'll be saying like, well, this content's not going to be found. This isn't going to be read because you haven't used enough like conjunctions, like and or because. And I always think, well, but I'm trying to write in a more natural style. And I feel that maybe the SEO stuff is actually it's filtering stuff down. It's trying to get like things into a very streamlined, like, no, this is how you get found. And I was wondering, do you have experience of that? Do you ever have to like rewrite, or do you have to write in a style specifically for like the internet and so it's found, or is that something that the client has to deal with on their end?
Oh, it's actually interesting because a lot of people find me through SEO. So that's how I get most of my leads is like, for example, if you search Portuguese travel writer on Google, I'm like one of the first people to show up.
Oh,
So it is,
congratulations.
thank you. It is important for that and for people to find you, you have to use certain keywords that will make you stand out. Which for me, it's easier because Portugal is a smaller country, I guess. So it's a very niche thing. But also in regards with writing articles, some clients don't really care. Like if you're writing for guidebooks, that doesn't matter because obviously that's not going online most of the times. So it is definitely an online specific thing. And also it depends on the clients. Like I have some clients that have WordPress, which is a platform for websites.
Mm-hmm.
And they would have something which is called, it's like a plugin called Yoast.
Yeah,
SEO.
it's exactly what I'm using. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have to get that to be green when I'm writing those articles. So I have to make sure. So usually they would give you a keyword that you're targeting. So every time you're creating a page for your website, for example, you should have a keyword in mind, like what do you want people to know? Like, why are people landing on this page? So usually these clients will give me a keyword and then I'll try to incorporate that in the article as natural as possible. Like I'm not trying to force it to be there if it doesn't sound right.
Yeah, this is what I find to be the challenge. So like the best example I can think of is like recipes and like, kind of how to make certain ingredients or meals. And I've noticed now that I've started writing content and I've started getting like feedback from Yoast and things like that, I've noticed that the reason if you search a recipe for a meal, it'll come up with like the life story first. And it's like, this is the meal that my grandma made. And you kind of have to scroll through a ton of stuff before you actually get to, I just want the recipe. And I think it's similar for the stuff I'm making where sometimes I'm getting feedback on the SEO where it's like, you need to write a lot more. And it's like, well, I'm trying to make this so it's more accessible and the information is there and it's easier to access. But exactly as you said, if it's not green, no one's going to read it anyway. So I was curious, like, how do you find that balance between having to make it has to be SEO compatible? Like, how do you make it natural, I guess?
I think I try to write first, write first for myself and then go with the keyword and see like, okay, how can I incorporate this? Because, the system will usually say like, you need however many times to repeat this keyword. So then you can go afterwards and see, okay, this will fit here. I think that's easier because if you're forcing yourself to just like write keyword, it's not going to work. You have to write it as you would write it, as you would speak with people, and then kind of incorporate that naturally, I think.
So it's taking that kind of natural writing into account. You can't just repeat it 50 times and
and even Google will even like not like that because they don't want you to be a robot. They understand people use keywords to search. That's the thing. So, but if you start writing loads of keywords, they would just like, no, this is a robot writing. Like no one writes like this.
Yeah. Well, it's actually, I'm glad you've mentioned robots because that was something else I was really curious about asking you. Are you familiar with Chat GPT?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's your, I don't want to bias it, so I'm curious, what's your opinion on it? How do you see it affecting the work that you're doing?
It's actually interesting because for a long time I tried to ignore it. It was
Right, yeah.
actually my partner, Nick, who mentioned it, and he was the one experimenting with it and telling me how I could use it in my favor, because I have I spend a lot of time researching sometimes too much. And he was trying to make it that I would save time with this tool. And I was like, no, but I can't trust it. It doesn't have the same knowledge that I do and
Yeah.
all of these things. But I finally succumbed to it, I think, a couple of months ago. And I started using it mostly to structure articles. So to do the research part where, I have to talk about specific topics and I don't really know where to start. And then it will give you a list like, these are the things that you can mention. For things that have required like fact checking, I don't think it's at a good point at the moment, because the system it's a bit dated, so it's not current at the moment.
Right.
And a
Okay.
lot of the things are not true. Like they would say something is open, but actually it's closed, or they would say something is in the west side of the country, but it's actually in the east side of the country. So I feel like I still need to know the facts myself. But to structure things in terms of grammar and how to put things together, I think it's helpful.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I was recently talking to another writer friend of mine, Don, and he was saying something very similar. And I've experimented with it as well. And I've exactly as you say, I think grammar and structure, it's really good for like how would you explain, the present perfect? And it can give you some really good stuff. But I've also found a lot of it's quite dry, like
Mm.
it loves bullet points. But I kind of drew a comparison because I could see that it's also presenting information in a very kind of SEO friendly way. It's like hyper accessible and it's like the keywords are all in there. And I was wondering, like, do you think there's a risk that the kind of the creativity, for example, like the writing that you're doing and the personality that you put into your work could get phased out if the kind of if SEO is scanning and it wants things in a certain way or words to appear in a certain way, and then things like Chat GPT also is presenting information or facts in a certain way, do you think there's a risk that kind of creativity isn't rewarded or found on the internet?
I think it will be rewarded, but in different ways. Like if companies just need someone to like, actually, there will be new positions of people like using SEO as a sorry, not SEO, Chat GPT as a tool in their own work. So they would have even in job descriptions like be knowledgeable of Chat GPT, because that will be helpful and that will speed processes in writing teams. I think researching and stuff. But I feel like creativity will still be rewarded because there is a lot of things that you personally can bring to a role. And ChatGPT isn't traveling around the world. He can pick up things from
Yeah.
different places, but the experience ultimately is yours. So
Yeah.
you're the one bringing the how that tasted, or different things like how the hotel manager approached you, and those little small details that I think it's difficult if you're not present in the moment.
I feel like I've got to go back now and and re-optimize my work.
For sure, yes, that will definitely help.
Thank you so much. Take
You're
care.
welcome. Bye.
So, how much did you understand? Did you understand everything? Come on now. Well, why not challenge yourself by taking the test at elevatorenglish.com. Remember, the test will give you feedback on your English. So once you've selected an answer, give it a moment. It's a little slow, apologies, and it'll explain how we use these phrases in general English and how you can use it in your day-to-day English. If you found anything that Joanna and I discussed interesting, or you would like to check out Joanna's writing, then you should head over to her website. That's correct. Go check it out. It's allowed. Also, perhaps you could check out a bookstore near you, look for a Portuguese travel guide, and you might just find her there as well. It's great stuff. It's a really good way to practice your English, and highly recommend it. So check it out. Another way to practice your English is by leaving a comment, just a few little words like, wow, Mike, this was the greatest video I've ever seen in my life. I never knew. let me know. Practice it. And it'll be lovely to hear from you. You can also share the video around, share it with friends. There's plenty of mic to go around, so I'd highly appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.